course, the other thing that'll be interesting to watch is their early routes as we get going. Well, finally, you got your wish.
Fylion seed name or file name, I'm sorry, it was early boots, please. And
you can't get earlier than that.
so the stutter steps kind of understood excitement on Fylion's side, and we'll see that and hopefully reflected in his gameplay. He's going to go back to the Dark Sanctuary to explore back to Village of Outcasts, whereas Dracarys is actually going to find what would have been a sword is instead a 20 rupee drop over at Stumpy.
And 20 rupees is enough for him to go play the arrow game, which looks like he's going to.
Fylion, unfortunately, despite having the fast movement, was not more resilient. Here in Dark World, the enemies still do the same amount of damage as they normally would, so this is a very lethal part of the game. Well, so far so good for Dracarys here. Turning into an Eagle Eye, trying to get as much cash as he can in advance so he can do the dig game and many other things.
Yep. This arrow game is pretty easy once you figure out the trick. What I've heard is you stand right up against the vendor here, and as the targets are passing the second curtain, you shoot, and it should hit every time.
And this is a lot like doing a Houlihan play early on in other modes. It's just a quick way to get rupees. And speaking of quick way to get rupees, Dracarys actually getting a pretty decent refund on the dig game. Unfortunately, just a piece of heart, but we'll actually go for more. By the looks of things, a wise decision. Fylion with the clutch shot right at the end there.
Yep, he gets his rupees. He can do the dig game now. And where's Dracarys going? Or Dracarys? Oh, he's gonna go buy some bombs, I think. Okay.
Yeah, so those bombs important for all kinds of exploration, and just having a full stack of them very handy early on in the race. Had rupees to spare, so definitely worth purchasing at that point.
Alright, so 5 quick chests in here. See if we get some nice progression. Piece of heart, rupees, piece of hearts, rupees, lamp. Okay, well, lamp helps a bit, but not much else there.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit before we actually get much use out of it. We did see a question in chat regarding where these two are in their group. Dracarys is currently the leader of the group with 8-1 as his record according to Challenge as of now, and Fylion's currently 2-7. This is actually game 2 of their series. Fylion chose these settings.
Look at Dracarys, he's heading back into Skull Woods. Most likely he'll be able to get at least one item out of here, if not both.
Well, maybe not just yet.
Little quick death there. It won't cost him any time, really, though.
And like a true legend of, a true dragon of legend, reviving pretty quickly there. Certainly sporting a really awesome dragon sprite, but this is a very dangerous segment, and you don't want to die in the overworld.
Yeah, overworld deaths will cost you at least several seconds, if not at least a minute.
I'm very curious to see how Dracarys is going to handle these Gibdos. One hug is enough to spell doom.
If you know how to manipulate them, you can get them into an advantageous spot, but it takes some practice, and they don't always do what you want them to do.
Well, so far the rest of Village of Outcasts for fylion has been pretty empty besides some rupees. We got some rupees from that chess game. Looks like he's going to head into the front half of Thieves Town and possibly find a weapon to complete it, hopefully.
We start with the big key that always has to be in the front of Thieves Town.
To answer the question in chat about what you can combine with inverted, currently no other variations can be combined. This is something that devs and admins were trying to work out before the tournament, but this is kind of the most stable iteration we can work with for now.
Yeah, you can do like Key Sandy, Retro, Randomizer, but for this tournament we just wanted to show off inverted, so we're just doing regular inverted for the most part, with maybe some smaller variations like all dungeons. So
yeah.
So interesting finds. Dracarys found a bottle and a mushroom, but he can't do anything with either. fylion found the Power Glove, which does open up Death Mountain.
Yeah, and other things to consider as well for inverted mode, for those of you who haven't seen it, a lot of overworld locations have been changed because we have to account for how we traverse the world. Previously, we had to use the mirror to get up to certain ledges. Now those are land bridges, and other things have been modified in that regard so that the whole overworld works the same way it used to before. So now on the left side of Dark Death Mountain, you have a ladder up to the top where you would have in the light world. fylion, unfortunately, in this hellway will not have much success getting past it.
So with the lamp and glove, as fylion steps out, we do have access to Dark Death Mountain. Now in swordless mode, the curtain in Aga's tower is pre-cut, so we can get to Aga, but unfortunately we don't have a way to reflect the balls that Aga throws yet.
And of course, as a clarification, both Ganon's tower and the castle tower, Aghanim's tower, have been swapped in inverted mode. So that's why JP's mentioning up at the top of Death Mountain. You wouldn't normally associate that with Aghanim, but that's how it is inverted. Well, it's pretty nice that that's a fairy in a bottle. I get the feeling we're not going to get the maximum value out of it, though.
Yeah, it's actually a little unfortunate to get that this early, because it's going to be hard to not take an unfortunate death. fylion, because of his routing, he doesn't have to check as much of Skullwoods. He found the two items quick and can just dip out. So it's going to be interesting. I feel like for fylion, his next play is to go up Death Mountain. Even outside of Aga Tower, there's 3 locations you can check for sure. Actually, 4. You can return the old man. You can check the inside of Spectacle Rock and get that item, even though you'd be in bunny form. And then there's the Super Bunny Cave.
Yeah, beyond that, not really a whole lot available to us. Not unless we want to torture ourselves a little bit in Thieves Town.
Oh, he's got his fairy, which of course he's going to use.
But is it all for naught?
He'll have some iframes, but he's going to run.
I feel like there's an easy Pokemon joke, but, you know, I had a critical miss on that. It wasn't very effective. Perhaps the flying type not that great against Dragon after all, because Dracarys just sliding right on through there.
Yeah, the problem there when trying to get into that rock is if you get to the rock, the one Murderactor will get triggered, so you want to try to use the sign to kill it, ideally. Unfortunately, fylion missed with his first shot there, so that just kind of threw things off for him.
Yeah, random things you pick up in Hyrule are actually better weapons than most equipment that you get. Pots are actually a high-level throwable for most of the game. Signs 2. Well, we're going to climb up the whole mountain with the old man with us. Looks like because of our reduced movement speed, we're just going to carry a bush as well on Dracarys' side for style.
Yeah, that's quite interesting that he's carrying the bush as well.
Really trying to transplant this all the way up there where it's going to get more sun. Dark Death Mountain, probably not a great candidate. Oh, he's going to go to the light world to do it. Makes a lot of sense. Also, that's an awesome bunny sprite.
Yeah, very nicely done. So, just 10 arrows from the old man. Now, he can go check the inside of Spectacle Rock. That is in logic while you're in while you're in bunny form.
Unfortunately, logic cannot account for flying cabbages, and fylion gonna have to repeat this segment if he wants to go check that, and it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah, there's not really anything else you can do right now. I mean, unless you want to go back into Thieves Town and try the back again.
Which, personally, I wouldn't do that without a weapon, but, you know, inverted, it can turn out to be the only place to get one, unless today you find the equivalent of your sword in the hammer in Spectacle Rock. Holy moly.
Alright, so that opens up the ability to finish Thieves Town. That also opens up at least being able to get into Pod, which I think Dracarys is going to go for. We still might be bow locked for Pod, but you can at least go in now.
Yeah, we don't have anything that we could potion glitch or anything with just yet. We have the cash to buy a potion if we really wanted to go as far as possible, but I think in inverted, it's kind of unwise to try and sequence break that unless, you know, I don't know. There might be some circumstances, but I feel kind of weird doing it.
I mean, maybe if you got a hint where you know something else is in Pod, then it might be worth it.
Yeah, actually, that does make a lot of sense.
This is our map check. We saw red crystals at Swamp and Turtle Rock, and Thieves Town is a green pendant.
Okay, good. You caught that, because for a moment there, I thought that was all crystals. Well, there is some value to, you know, finishing up Thieves Town. Now that we have that hammer, that's a possibility. I think Phylion's going to take an intentional death here.
Yeah. So we got some divergence here. Which play is going to pay off?
Well, we have Lamp and Hammer. That's a pretty nice combo for Palace of Darkness. But Thieves Town is now, you know, reasonably completable, even if we could do so with another weapon we might find in here.
Oh, and Pod is completely bow-locked. I think Dracarys is going to go check the hint, but that's all he can do right now.
And knowing that's going to be a bit of a backtracking, opts to completely leave.
So he can check the pyramid, he can check Catfish as well. Oh, Fylion got through the hellway. He's got to be a little careful here. He's going to elect to not check the hint.
And perhaps he'll do it on the way back after he's got the item. You know, I mean, when you're in this kind of hell state, it's hard to even say exactly what's going through someone's mind as they approach grasshoppers that can completely one-hit them.
Oh, he swung the wrong way. That is rough.
Well, it's one of the woes of having the hammer is that it's not that awesome hitbox that the sword is. I mean, even Fighter Sword gives you an arc. Hammer is a pretty specific window, and if you have even one slight mispress where the sword you can kind of buffer things, hammer it ain't like that. So finally I'm falling victim to that. That's an unfortunate death. But I mean, maybe this time he opts to take the hint if he has full health.
Well, there's the mirror. I don't think that opens anything just yet, though.
Not immediately, although it is a nice thing to have. That's going to make a lot of other checks a lot easier.
Yeah, it'll definitely help once we hit the light world, but you know, you can't do anything with it right now.
Well, you mentioned the catfish, Dracarys on the way. Phylion's hopefully going to dodge these grasshoppers, actually getting pretty close there, but knows the RNG patterns pretty well. And we'll get rewarded with quite a hefty sum of cash.
So I think if my item counts are right, there's one more item in Thieves Town.
That should be correct based on keys. Well, we already have the big keys because we're back here. We didn't see a compass or a map, did we? Also, I got to shout out Dracarys for setting up a quick ward by bonking into the ledge next to Catfish. Even though he didn't end up mirroring, that would have saved him half a second. Well, we get to find out pretty quickly here if the item's going to be on blind, either here or in the big chest. Fylion having the hammer will absolutely check everything.
Yep, so about 50-50 chance that there'll be this chest or blind right now. And even if it's not here, then we got the green pendant so we can grab. But it looks like blind's holding on to 2 items.
That's pretty impressive. I don't know of any other location in the game that, or one individual check that does that exact thing. Usually you have to open individual chests. But the boss fight here is going to be a challenging one. Fylion has 4 hearts to work with. Certainly not just the 3-heart blind, but hammer is a really tough weapon to use.
He takes an early hit. Gotta be careful.
There's a slight desync to the normal script of the fight. That can make this a little more challenging as he goes to the bottom of the floor. Wow, and there's a steal.
Oh, one more hit he needed, an unfortunate death.
Well, the hint that we missed earlier, Dracarys just checked it. We find out that we need fire to get the big key in Tower of Hera, which just means that we have to go to the basement and deal with the tile room.
Though there's a good chance Hera will be a pendant, since 2 of the 3 Light World dungeons are pendants.
Yeah, so it might not be something that prevents us from, say, going to Ganon's Tower later on and finding, potentially a last item that we need. As this is an all-dungeon seed, we'll eventually have to go up there to finish it, but perhaps we won't have to for quite a while.
So, Fylion picked up a potion. He's heading towards Pod. This is kind of interesting. At first I thought he was going to grab that potion to go take on Blind again, but now... Oh, no, he's not going to Pod. He's going to go check the pyramid, which will get him the mirror.
Well, I think this is some pretty smart heads-up decision-making because Fylion knows he's got a much more difficult fight ahead of him if he goes back to Blind. Once you've taken the death to Blind, he doesn't start off, in his transformation dialogue box like he normally would, and the joke in Randomizer, of course. He starts at the top of the room and immediately starts moving, which if you had sword beams, it'd be no problem. You don't have that luxury in this mode. So Fylion probably making a wiser long-term decision in that regard.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say he could have done with that potion if he did go to Pod was he could set up for the potion glitch, which is out of logic, but would let him search more of Pod.
No, I think you're right about that. That definitely seems like the reason to buy the potion. I mean, you could at that point anyway, and there wouldn't be a reason not to, but heading in this direction, I think he's probably going to save and quit and head right back over there.
Meanwhile, over on Dracarys' side, he's about to do the blind fight. He still has his fairy, so he'll have a little bit more margin of error.
And that's an important one. Every little bit of extra health you have, or the ability to tank one more hit, without worrying about getting hit, is just a little bit of extra damage that you can, get into the fight. So Dracarys stands a pretty good chance with effectively 8 hearts to work with here. That's a textbook start.
So far, so good. Just 3 more hits.
Now this is nice. We're seeing him use pause buffers to line up his hammer hits. He's going to have to take the death here, but he might just squeeze one in. Nevertheless, he is just 1 strike away and should be able to get it with his 4 hearts.
Yep, he's got blind down. Well, there was a weapon he could have used on blind. But that's not our progression.
I didn't have to catch it. What was it?
Cane of Burna.
Yeah, that would have been a much nicer weapon. You know, in normal mode,
Well,
it's actually pretty handy.
Now, it's actually interesting. With the Cane of Burna, that does kind of put Spike Cave in the logic, but their health is so low, I don't think it's technically in logic yet. But that will let them get past the Lionels to check Super Bunny Cave.
Yeah, so a couple of options for extra defense and extra, you know, just ability to plow through things. Fylion heading towards Palace of Darkness. I guess we got a moment of truth here as well, whether or not that potion glitch is going to come into play, as Fylion can choose to do so at this point.
And, wow, he's going for Spike Cave. This is a gutsy play.
Well, I don't think that the logic takes into account the actual heart container totals. It mostly just depends on whether or not you have access to this item and basically a full magic meter. On other difficulties, it compensates how much magic drain there is based on that.
Yeah, well, with Boots, he had enough, and he gets lower with Blue Mail. Not progression, but it is still a very nice pickup.
Oh, looks like we are going to get a potion manipulation glitch out of Fylion. He's heading over to this room so that he can set it up. He's going to use a potion as he transitions across 1/2 of the super tile to the other. You see it right there. This unhooks the camera from where it normally sits as far as the game world goes, and allows us to trick the game into thinking there are no enemies in this room, which will open up the kills activated door.
So everything Fylion does from here on out is out of logic, but it means he could find something that'll give him a nice little boost. Maybe even let him avoid Aga if he gets the right item, which is looking like is more and more likely.
Now, while these 2 keys are not in themselves that critical just yet, he can still progress throughout the dungeon. Unfortunately for Dracarys, taking a death to some Lionels here on Death Mountain, that'll be a little bit of a time sink.
Yeah, so you can get past those Lionels with just basically some invulnerability frames, but it's a pretty tight dance when you're at 4 hearts. You basically have to take a blast from the Lionels and then use the invulnerability frames to walk past them. And it can be a little tricky to do. However, he does have magic. He could just use his Cane of Burna as well to get by them. He should have just enough. Oh, Fylion finds a rod.
Yeah, that ice rod is a nice breath of fresh air. We know that it's crystal for Turtle Rock, so we'll have to take down Trinex at some point. So Fylion probably feeling pretty good about that, although it's not gonna get us anywhere. So I guess after a potion manipulation glitch, maybe not the best item.
Well, there's still more to look for in here. Dracarys is going for a chest that isn't logic, the bonk chest there, but only gets 20 rupees out of it.
Yep, no skull left unturned. Dracarys making sure that all of the chests available are being checked. And wise decision. Consistency seems to be favored for those who are thorough.
Oh, and actually, chat makes a good point. It's all dungeons, so it doesn't matter if you can skip Aga or not.
We're getting a hammer jump attempt from Fylion here. Very nicely done, with only a handful of actual pause buffers. For context, if you were doing that in an NMG run where you don't need to pick up both items in this maze, you would save about 14 or 15 seconds if you did it in about the same amount of time fylion did. You do still save some time and potentially a key, although he will just open up the store.
So on Dracarys' side, he's going for Aga, which we'll definitely need for light world access. The one problem being, though, that we don't have the Moon Pearl yet, so even with light world access, their options will be limited.
Yeah, there are not a lot of locations that are freestanding accessible to us, but having that means to get to the light world is also just handy in general.
I mean, well, unfortunately, Phylion's potion glitch netted him Bombos in the Ice Rod, but not much else for now.
Yeah, we already know that Ether is the medallion for Turtle Rock, so it's not even going to help us there. Not that you necessarily need the medallions as much in Inverted when it comes to Turtle Rock. There are quite a few extra entrances made when you consider the use of the mirror on the face of the mountain, as all of those caves that previously led to it still do. Fylion, unfortunately, taking a death to Lionel's as well, but does have a fairy to work with, so that will give him a little bit of a boost through here.
Now, I did think of something cool the seed could do. Well, actually, no, we need the bow still to do that. I was going to say it could force us into Mire early, but even if Bombos is the medallion for Mire, it's out of logic until we find the bow.
All right, well, we have another hint here in the castle tower. It is a joke hint. Dracarys is going to walk right away from that. This is a pretty challenging segment. These red guards take more than one hit from the actual hammers, so, I mean, we're at a pretty good risk of dying here.
Yeah, he's going to use his cane to help. And this next room is not so bad because you can just throw pots.
This segment would be significantly improved if we just had the boomerang.
So Phylion's going to go back and take on Blind again. He wants to make sure he's not leaving anything behind there.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to turn in a green pendant or anything since we haven't really been in the light world, but not something you want to leave behind if you're going to head over that way at any point. Well, here we are coming up on the Aghanim fight. Aghanim 1 is a pretty straightforward fight altogether. The RNG is set between both runners, so you'll see the same patterns overall. It's a 5-cycle fight. The first attack will always be a reflectable yellow ball. 2, 3, and 4 normally have a 50% chance of being either reflectable or a blue ball attack, which wastes time. And attack number 5 is always lightning, which we can't do anything with. All right, moment of truth for Fylion. This is going to be pretty close, I think.
Oh.
Well, the laser was close. However, we'll be able to take on the fight with fresh health. This is kind of common for Inverted. It's not strange to see Blind be a pretty big hurdle early on.
Now, I think there's a shop right... Yeah, there's a shop right here, which should have blue potion that Fylion can pick up. Not red potion here, but still, potion that can refill your health.
In the meantime, Dracarys chipping away at the 6 total hits that you need to finish off Aghanim. Say if you hit every single one of them that's guaranteed, the worst you could do possible is 15, which is like a 1 in 32,000 chance. Dracarys definitely not going to have that happen today.
He still has to be careful, though. He's down to a heart and a half. And just got to make sure he gets through this without taking too much damage.
Yeah, you take half a heart every single time you get hit, and those blue balls are pretty hard to, avoid, so gotta be very careful. Fylion in a pretty precarious position himself. He died last time because he took 2 hearts at the same time from the laser. Direct contact with blind will only do 1 heart of damage.
And he takes the death. I think he's waiting to use the red potion until he gets on to the second part of the blind fights.
That does make sense. You kind of want to be conservative with it, to get the one, fight that actually will, finish. Because, that advantage of having blind in the neutral starting position is hard to overstate. I mean, Dracarys was pretty fortunate to have that fairy still at that point.
Now I see Dracarys checking out Hyrule Castle. Now, he took a death so he could basically respawn in his normal form. But this is not accounted for in the logic. So whatever he does in here is out of logic. Fylyon's doing the dance with blinds, takes another death.
By the looks of things, I think he was trying to lure blind to the bottom of the screen. Blind will move through a certain pattern of, figure 8-like movements, and then eventually cross the screen. It is much more difficult to hit blind from below with the hammer than it is from above. So that's a pretty smart decision to make. Unfortunately, it does take a couple of attempts to kind of get down. Dracarys, in the meantime, will be checking the rest of the early escape sequence heading towards Zelda's cell. We'll have a kind of weird fight with the ball and chain card coming up ahead. Alright, blind, the return of blind. Fylion, yep, lining this up so that he can get the easier shots from above. Seems like a very smart decision to me. That was absolutely brutal.
Yeah, I can't blame him for doing this. He doesn't have a Moon Pearl yet, so he knows even if he does Aga, he can't do much in the light world. But yeah, it's at a certain point you almost want to start thinking about just coming back later.
It's that one instinct that you have from Thieves Town from every seed ever that makes you think you get very badly burned if you skip it. Dracarys in the back of Escape, still not finding much.
Yeah, I don't think he found really anything back there. And he's still kind of out of logic. He was all out of logic, so... Now, there are things he can do that are in logic. I think he can turn in that blue or that green pendant that is in logic.
Yeah, as the Bunny Link sprite, or basically when you're in the light world, you can still interact with NPCs. So, I mean, yeah, if you want to turn something in or talk to somebody who has an item, that still works.
Fylion uses his potion. Let's see.
I think he used that early on accident.
But it's down. He'll get his Cane of Burna and his green pendant.
Yes. Seeing those dashes, I think Fylyon's feeling pretty good about clearing that fight.
We're about to find out if that green pendant is needed. Oh, nice mirror there by Dracarys.
That was very much necessary. One thing that a lot of people forget is once you've defeated Aghanim, the overworld becomes much more difficult.
Alright, is this green pendant useful? Nope, just a heart container.
I mean, it's not useful, it's just not progressive.
So, what else can they do? I think they can go talk to the bottle vendor, get whatever item the bottle vendor has. I'm not 100% sure what else they can do in bunny form here.
I believe they can talk to the uncle.
No, they can't, because the uncle's guarded by bushes.
Oh, yes, good point. Yeah, and we don't have a readily accessible way of activating Super Bunny without being able to fall into a hole.
Dracarys is going to check the cave south of the grove. Can't get the item, whatever it is. He can just see what it is. Okay. They'll be coming back for that.
Yep, another iteration of an overworld change where you're meant to be able to access a cave in the light world that you would normally need to mirror to get to. Um, but yeah, with the intelligent application of Super Bunny, we'll get that.
It's a very nice heads-up play by Dracarys. That will be out of logic. And I don't think it actually even opens up anything for him yet. He still needs that Moon Pearl before it does.
No, but hopefully his reach across Hyrule will be significantly improved. At the race game, the prize or the purse for that would have been some roops. Dracarys probably not too concerned about picking that up.
So chat's asking what's in logic. Bottle Vendor definitely is. Sick Kid might be as well, since you can interact with him normally.
Yeah, that'll work.
Is the frog, that might be in logic too.
I didn't think you could pick up. Oh yeah, you can do this. You can save and quit.
No, you can go right back to the portal and take him to his home. So kind of a role reversal here.
Yeah, inverted. I get that like completely upside down. What's interesting is a lot of those bushes are removed behind the library, so you can make this movement more easily.
Yeah, I think they removed those bushes so this could be in logic to get to the dwarf with just the mirror.
That's a really minor one. I don't actually see that referenced in any documentation.
And that was 100% required. There's your Moon Pearl.
Excuse you and your entire logic. Holy Moon Pearl.
I think that's something you're not going to see very often.
Well, only once for this seed is it required to be in that location, and hopefully for no other runner ever in the rest of perpetuity. Dracarys is going to take advantage of that, though, and try and check everything possible, knowing that the rest of the overworld is much more easily explored.
So the sequence for that, you had to get the hammer from Spectacle Rock as your buddy to go to the pyramid to get the mirror. Then you had to go kill Aga to then come to go get the dwarf as a bunny to bring him back to get the Moon Pearl.
And that location, the fact that you had to do that particular mirror placement to pick up the frog or the blacksmith, it's almost similar to me, in my opinion, to having to get the hammer at like Magic Bat.
That's a fair comparison.
You know, but inverted.
Yeah.
Well, nothing topsy-turvy or inverted about the chicken shack here for Dracarys. However, we will get a little bit more health to work with. Not the Sanctuary Heart. Kind of a good thing that it isn't. We might want that heal later. And fylion will approach his Aghanim fight. Dracarys finds a fetch quest and a shovel at the bottle vendor. That could be a very pricey dig into his wallet. Fylion's got to be really careful right now. No method of healing, and blue balls are lethal. I like that Fylion's keeping his distance. This is a really pivotal, critical strategy to use when you're at low health in this situation.
Alright. So we got Dracarys going into the back, into Blind's hideout.
While that Ether Medallion may or may not be relevant to us, we definitely...
Well, actually, the Ether Medallion is 100% relevant.
Well, there's so many entrances to Turtle Rock, we may or may not even have to use that one.
Oh, you're right. You're completely right there. Sorry.
That being said, though, Misery Mire also possibly, an important use for it, and it could still be logically required to use that entrance for Turtle Rock, depending on item configuration. The Canis Samaria is an interesting thing in Inverted. Because of those different entrances, you can kind of go backwards if you have it. Oh, no.
Oh, man. This is rough for fylion.
Now, I will say the silver lining here is it's not a Ganon's Tower death, which would be the other Aghanim fight, which would be much more punishing. This is still time-consuming, but... and that being said, it's inverted mode, so it would not be surprised to see something similar happen to Dracarys in a later situation, as we are not really all that well-equipped, even though we do have the hammer.
We find the flute in the Lost Woods. Now, because this is inverted mode, the flute is not needed at all. Especially since we already have the mirror. The mirror is our Mire access. But I believe Dracarys picked up the fire rod, and I think he's going to go kill Mothula here shortly.
Yes, that's correct. We did get the fire rod, and the interesting other nuance about flute is that you still have to activate it in Kakariko in the light world, but it now works in the dark world. So that does give you fast travel where you normally wouldn't have it. It's convenient, but as JP mentioned, not at all necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it can be required for Mire access if you can't find the mirror, but with the mirror, we know the flute's not needed at all. Of course, on the flip side, something that we will need at some point, since it is a crystal, is the book. So in inverted mode, there's only one way to get into Desert Palace, and that is with the book.
Yeah, so none of those old useful shortcuts that we all remember. No, you're going the long way. And yeah, that's an important thing to remember, as we used to put a lot of weight in that flute for that reason. So, it'd be kind of interesting to see how we traverse the light world as we now kind of have our, first real big, wide open access to it, now that we have that Moon Pearl. Or at the very least, Phylion's probably going to be on the hunt for it very shortly. This Aghanim fight almost certainly going to go a lot better.
Yeah, though, unfortunately, some of these deaths by Fylion, he's falling a bit behind. So he's going to have to find a way to catch up at some point.
Well, Dracarys does have a major challenge ahead, not a lot of magic to work with, which is kind of typical for this scenario, for this Mothula fight. But Hammer, not exactly the easiest weapon to use either. Now, Hammer is actually pretty reliable as far as damage output goes. It is the equivalent of a Tempered Sword. Mothula on a conveyor belt floor with spikes around the sides can make that kind of complicated.
Yeah. But he seems to be handling it pretty well so far, keeping Mothula away from the spikes so his hammer hits do damage.
Wow, and that was just one solid hit away. Or no, he has blue mail, but pretty close to death there. Dracarys does pull it through, and will be rewarded with full heal and the big key for the dungeon.
So Fylian's through Ega 1, and now he's gonna start doing his overworld checks. Looks like he's gonna stay in logic at least.
Yeah, one of the tougher things about these sequence breaks is that you're not necessarily going to be as familiar with inverted sequence breaks with the changes in logic and the overworld, unless you run a lot of it. So in this tournament, I imagine the strategy for a bunch of runners is just throw this mode at people who they think haven't necessarily played a ton of it, or if they feel that they're particularly strong at it themselves. Then again, randomizer can be randomizer. You never know what's going to happen, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse.
Well, there's a Quake medallion in the tree. So we have all 3 medallions now. Well, sorry, let me correct that. We know where all 3 medallions are.
Well, we saw some fancy footwork from fylion to avoid those Hyrule footmen. We'll get that piece, or that heart container from Sahasrahla. Probably not the greatest reward, but every heart counts at this count.
So we know fylion needs to head towards Kakariko and save the frog to be able to get his Moon Pearl.
Yeah, some of the confusion in chat, I want to address that. It may look like fylion can do, just about anything right now, but this is actually his bunny sprite.
Yeah, this is Bunny Link right now. So even though it looks like normal Link, don't be deceived. It's not normal Link.
Well, Dracarys will take an opportunity to look at the back half of the escape here with these 3 items. Now that we're able to actually dash into walls, we find 10 bombs, the map, and just a piece of heart. Not a lot. I mean, we have found quite a few things, but it feels a little bit like this seed's been somewhat stingy as far as weapons go.
Unfortunately, fylion walked right past the mirror spot for the smith. Now, I think he's gonna go check the bottle vendor first, and might even check the sick kid. He gets the shovel, but he can't do anything with the shovel in bunny form, I think.
Well, our uncle gives us his last HP. We'll have to start over from the beginning of the game, I guess. And Dracarys is out of there after that. Skipping the rain state altogether in this mode, thankfully. fylion heading east. Not exactly sure where he's headed. Oh, for the one... No, I thought he was heading to Sanctuary for a second there.
Yeah, I don't know where he's going either.
What can you do in bunny state over here?
Oh, he's gonna turn into mushroom.
Ah.
Oh no, he can't turn into mushroom. He can't get there.
Ouch, that's rough.
Yeah, we know, like I said, we know what fylion needs to do. He needs to go to the smith to get his Moon Pearl. Unfortunately, depending on how familiar fylion is with inverted mode, he might not know he can do that.
I mean, it's an awkward configuration. I myself have definitely fallen prey to the hammer and bat scenario myself, so I mean, being that's kind of the corollary, I would not be surprised at all if that were the case. As knowledgeable as fylion is, that's kind of one of those weirder situations.
Yeah, I mean, with all the different modes we're throwing at these runners, there's easily times where you could have a seed configuration where something happens that you're not familiar with. And it's an unfortunate scenario when that happens.
Well, by the looks of things, Dracarys appears to be heading towards the east side of Light World Death Mountain with that hook shot. Now, we did that out of sequence prior. Not that far out of sequence, to be honest, but a little bit of time saved in that routing choice by super bunnying to the K45, as we like to call it.
I think we're going to see fylion check the mire area. This is in logic, because it is in logic to use the mirror as a bunny. He's got to be very careful with that murder dactyl, though. Oh no.
Also, according to chat, we do have silvers on the desert ledge. I didn't catch that, so thank you for pointing that out. Definitely an item worth picking up later, but no bow. Probably not too worried just yet. Wow, that Paradox Cave.
Yeah, I've noticed that the later into a seed that you get some of these high value caves, the less likely the cave is actually contain anything worthwhile.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think that we're pretty much an hour in, and Blind and Mothiel are all that we fought.
Now, with the mirror, we do have the option of going into Turtle Rock, and at this point, Laser Bridge would be in logic. There are some other chests in Turtle Rock that would be in logic as well. Though without Samaria, or for Dracarys, the Ice Rod, he can't complete it.
Yeah, so while we could absolutely go and, check Laser Bridge, it's not exactly an appealing choice right now.
But it is 4 chests. That's still worth remembering. But I think we're going to see Dracarys go and clear Hera first, which is absolutely needed to do anyway, so might as well get it out of the way.
Yeah, and with that Fire Rod, Dracarys also knows that he can, get the fire-locked big key in the basement, so we know there's nothing preventing us from finishing this.
Oh, and... Okay, I was about to say, fylion, he doesn't have magic, so he can't go in, but I was going to say, he might be trying Meyer. I think that's the progression, though. I mean, he would know that that's out of logics, because of where he found Bombos.
Yeah, but could be trying to dive deeper into the Matrix.
He's killing enemies. I think he wants to find the magic so he can dive this.
I find it interesting to commit to Misery Mire at this point. I mean, I see why, based on being over here in the first place. But yeah, there's still a fair amount of overworld available. This is a kind of a riskier choice to make. Also, he's going after one of the most annoying enemies in the game.
So just to answer a quick question, chat, this was fylyon's choice, as this is their second match. Fylion is the lower seed between the two, so this was his choice for a match. Unfortunately, it's just been one of those situations where if you're not 100% familiar with Inverted Witch, at this point, it's rare to find a runner who is 100% familiar with this. You could easily get lost, and this seed just had one of those scenarios, Moon Pearl on a blacksmith, that you'd almost never see happen. But we've got fylion. I think he's still looking for magic. He's gonna give up now. Not a really helpful hint there in Hera. A map requires the hammer.
Being that there are a plethora of locations that could potentially be, not exactly the most important thing. Although I think somebody once told me that means that Helmasaur King has the item, that's like a guaranteed. I'm not sure on that one.
Hammer could be something in Swamp Palace, something on Helmasaur, or it could be something on the left side of GT.
Maybe I'm thinking like a specific Randomizer thing. Anyway, I'll get back to that eventually, but yeah, exactly. Like the actual places that we can go based on Hammer are quite a few. Well, Dracarys doing pretty good to dispatch of Moldorm 2. The Hammer, of course, being a great weapon because we can skip the enraged phase. The 6 total hits that we would normally do with Fighter Sword knocked out in 3 total Hammer hits.
Alright, so Dracarys has 3 dungeons down. He's going to go back across. So, gets Dead Rock blocked.
Well, looks like Dracarys is committing to Turtle Rock, as we were discussing before, as there are those 3 different cave entrances you can take. This one in particular leading to Laser Bridge. The opposite world cave would normally be a nice place to find 2 fairies, but for now, much more valuable for the 4 items.
Oh, finally I remember this blacksmith. This is good for him. We'll see if fylion has any rage after finding the moon pearl here.
You know, it'd be understandable rage. I mean, I can't even begin to articulate how it feels to have items like that. Say, I might be, you know, beating an old drum here, but Bat having a hammer. Moon Pearl being on the blacksmith and inverted, probably not the most awesome feeling, but fylion, cool as a cucumber, showing no stress whatsoever. I'm very impressed by that.
I think some of that had to do with the fact that he was still in bunny form and he couldn't rage if he wanted to.
You know, you raise a good point. You cannot dash in bunny form, so typical expressions of anger in Link to the Past not possible. Perhaps by the time he got outside. I think you have a good point. Well, another entrance down, Mimic Cave, not valuable for us. Making sure that we checked it, though. Dracarys not leaving any stones unturned. So a little bit of health out of that, and we're going to go check a little further in Turtle Rock. We do have the big key from before, so we can actually check this big chest right away.
Right. Oh, there's an item. There's the flippers.
And just like that, the quote-unquote vanilla location for them, quote-unquote, Kappa, Dracarys with that in tow will be getting out of there. As there are a couple of things opened up by that, and I think that's pretty much the value he was looking for.
Kind of taking stock where we are, what we still need to find. We need to find the book. We need the bow. Actually, that finding those flippers means Swamp is fully in logic now. Also, Ice Palace is in logic. So, some interesting decisions here coming up.
I mean, it kind of almost seems like this Turtle Rock play was the linchpin for all of these different dungeons, by the way you're describing it. I mean, it sounds exactly right. With the flippers, we can do at least 2 of them based on that alone. And with Swamp being fully clearable, I mean, that's a lot of value for just one location. It seems like it would be silly, in my opinion, to not go there right after this.
Yeah, especially with this being all dungeons, so you're going to have to do it at some point anyway. Regardless, it's a crystal, so you'd have to do it at some point.
Thankfully, we don't have to expend a key going backwards. Not that we're short on keys, but kind of a nice visual thing to see. Dracarys will hopefully get through these chain chomps, instead opting to mirror out, as we don't have Key and Samari to do anything anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, yet no cane means we can't do anything else in there anyway right now.
I honestly don't think we've seen the Lumberjack Cave, have you?
We did, it was Quake.
Oh, right. That's why Dracarys had it and fylion didn't. Well, so we have a question in chat about how far behind is fylion. With the finding of that bow, a little bit more. Fylion is about a dungeon and a half behind as far as exploration goes. Skull Woods will not take long to defeat Mothula once he goes back. So maybe 2 full dungeons behind. However, you know, any number of these items that we're still looking for can still be the linchpin that we don't find for another half hour or 45 minutes. I'm kind of expecting to find the Cane of Samaria in a weird place at this point.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see where that ends up. Well, at this point, I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if it's in Mire. The weird.
Yeah, vanilla location.
Yeah, the weirdest spot you can find an item is its vanilla location. So yeah, Dracarys is gonna go check Sarsla, and then I'm guessing he'll combo Eastern Pod.
That's a pretty nifty way to do it, knowing you can complete both and having the means to traverse both worlds pretty quickly. So Dracarys getting some pretty nice routing overall. I'm very impressed with the health count as well. 13 hearts to work with, just chugging along. While fylion impressing the world with a sub 1 hour and 6 minute escape. Unfortunately, just a key. This is kind of like the nicest item configuration for Eastern I've seen in a while.
Yeah, they'll be able to get, or Dracarys will get through this quick.
Yeah, boots, hookshot. We have powerful weapons. We of course do have our bow. This will allow us to be extremely fast just through the exploration. We'll also get a hint in this dungeon, which could be some very important information. Could also be a joke hint.
Actually, thinking about it, the only thing we don't have that would be nice is silvers, which we know are in the Desert Ledge, but we can't get to those without the book.
Yeah, and this is normal mode, so those silvers will work anywhere in Hyrule. In hard and expert being available in the bracket stage, you will not be able to use those anywhere but Ganon's room.
Well, in hard mode, yeah, you can't use them anywhere but Ganon's tower. In expert, I don't think the silvers are even included in the item pool unless it's swordless mode.
Yes, that's correct. So in this particular setting, if it was expert instead, that would be the only way to use them. Wow, this equipment loadout for Dracarys, picking up half magic and also finding our second Jokin. Well, judging by where Phylion's heading, we don't have the means to check a Bombos medallion. We do seem to be heading towards Swamp Palace, though. I'm wondering if we're just... Sure?
No, I think he's just checking the Light World to see if there's any items here.
This will lead him to Mini Moldorm Cave next.
Did Dracarys make these southern checks?
Yes. I don't recall what we had in Mini Moldorm Cave, but I think it was mostly nothing. Dracarys pulling off a pretty effective damage boost and getting a hook dash as well off of the manual staircase there, knowing the layout of the land pretty well. Even though he took a hit on the way through, that's definitely a time save.
Now, it is worth noting as well that with that bow, we do have access to all 3 pendant dungeons. Dracarys is about to clear the 3rd of them. And... oh! No, Dracarys hasn't been here because Fylion just found the Titan's Mitts.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no way he's been here.
Now, that's not a huge find in Inverted, unfortunately. It only unlocks one location. But, yeah, as I was saying, we'll get our last pendant here, so that does allow you to pull the pedestal. Now, of course, this being all dungeons, you know, a ped seat is not that big of a deal. But one of the items we're missing could be there.
Well, one thing to consider is that we don't have a book, so we wouldn't know what's on there anyway, so it could be just a blind pull and hope we find it. But Dracarys pulling off a really nice fast kill here on Armos Knights, almost perfectly executed.
And Fountain's going to show us a hint tile that we never see except in Inverted.
Yeah, no way, Jose, would you ever be here otherwise.
Unfortunately, the hint doesn't really pay off.
Thankfully, however, the Express Airlines, Duck Express, I guess if you want to call it that, does now service the Dark World. So we're heading back up to the top of Dark Death Mountain. fylion heading towards Tower of Hera.
Yeah, he's got Tower of Hera. He's got all of the Death Mountain checks to make. So, there's still a lot he can get here. Of course, we've seen pretty much all of it from Dracarys' side.
Well, as our runners are retreading each other's step, if you're enjoying this race, this excellent swordless inverted monstrosity that our runners have stumbled into today and somehow scheduled into their lives, Lord have mercy on their souls, you should show them some support here on Twitch by giving them a follow. And of course, if, as a reminder, you are watching Speed Gaming 4, if you want to catch all of the tournament action, you should follow all the Speed Gaming channels, Speed Gaming and Speed Gaming 2 through 6, and of course ALTTP Randomizer and ALTTP Randomizer 2 through 4.
So at this point, we're kind of just wondering who's going to find that next piece of progression. As I mentioned, Dracarys is going to pod. We've already seen all of this on Phylion's side. So as long as he clears it, he'll get his Ice Rod and Bombos medallion, both of which he does need to finish the seed.
Well, we had a question in chat about where the Ice Rod was. Dracarys just showed it to us here in Palace of Darkness. fylion did use a potion manipulation glitch earlier in the race to access these items early. Did not pay off, as that only gave us a medallion that we weren't going to use for a while anyway. And of course, that Ice Rod, same story. Though I think fylion may consider the Try Next Fight being up here, where Dracarys couldn't.
He can't. He doesn't have Cane of Samaria.
Oh, right, yeah. Unless he wants to hover that gap. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but he ain't Scrivo necessarily. I mean, maybe he can. I don't know.
Oh, Scrivo or Mentos.
That'd be amazing. Or maybe Giselle Schaff. She could probably do it. Well, another fairy in a bottle for Dracarys, which is nice, but at this point, almost a little overkill. As is common in a lot of inverted seeds, once you start really stacking on the equipment, a lot of the purported difficulty kind of washes away. I mean, we've been able to access most of the light world pretty quickly since we got that Moon Pearl. Dracarys is kind of in a commanding position. As long as we don't fall down, say, any rabbit holes, should have a pretty good time clearing the rest of this up.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of right now that might give fylion an advantage is if something is at King's Tomb and he checks it, it's pretty quick. But, I mean, Mini Moldorm Cave, I can't see Dracarys putting that off forever.
Yeah, I mean, that is 5 items, and, you know, who would skip 5 items when you need 1 or 2 for go mode? Book of Midoriya, of course, and the Cane of Samaria being the big culprits that we're looking for.
Dracarys is going to be able to check one item here that fylion could not, and that's going to be the Helmasaur item. Since fylion didn't have his bow yet, he could not fight Helmasaur.
Alright, well, Dracarys is definitely going all the way to the end of this dungeon, sparing no time and no turtle monsters. Alright, well, we did get a hint earlier that a hammer would lock, I think, a map or something. While we know that was an Randomizer-specific thing, that it would have to be Helmasaur King in that situation, we may find out that it happened to be accurate, so... I haven't been keeping track of the items in Palace of Darkness, as there are so many locations. Maybe you have Brewer Fan, JP?
Sorry, I didn't fully catch that question.
I was rambling a bit. Did you happen to catch the item count? Do you know if we're supposed to have an item here on Helmasaur King?
I did not catch the item count. I don't think Dracarys is going to mirror again before Helmasaur, so I can't say for sure.
I want to say that there was one item space open. He may get the compass here. I mean, I think he's caught everything else in the dungeon. Well, this is not exactly a fun fight swordless, although a lot of people practice this fight this way, just doing the hammer hits and bouncing back. 17 hits to the face will destroy the shield, and then there's a couple of different ways to deal with the second phase. A lot will use the bow and arrow, but Dracarys is going for some real gutsy hammer strikes to the jewel.
Yeah, he's somewhat trying to damage boost here. I mean, some people will do the hammer hits without the sword buffers, just because it saves lag frames, but yeah, he gets down nicely. Oh, and just the map.
Fair enough, that was actually what the hit was referencing, unless Eastern Palace also has one there. But that is another crystal for Dracarys. That is 5 dungeons already.
Yeah, he's got a pretty commanding lead over fylion right now. But yeah, we still need the cane and the book, and I gotta believe Dracarys is why he's running. I think he's gonna go to Swamp next. So yeah, Swamp has 6 items in it, plus it's a 5/6 crystal. The other one being Turtle Rock. Or maybe he's not going there quite yet. I guess he never checked the shovel spot.
Well, it doesn't hurt to be comprehensive, and while Dracarys may or may not feel like he's doing well, you know, we can tell that this ain't that bad as far as progress goes here. But definitely pays to be thorough. Well, you mentioned before, JP, that King's Tomb being the only Titansmith's locked location in Inverted, Dracarys seems very likely to go find those Titansmiths shortly, so any edge that fylion could have potentially had from that location kind of evaporated here.
Yeah, though I think we're gonna see Dracarys. We're gonna see Dracarys do Swamp first. He's kind of combining his Swamp check, or his Light World Swamp check with his Dark World check.
And we'll also get a fresh hint. Dracarys is going to find out that the Misery Mire big key and another key?
Yep, small key and big key on the Firelock side of Misery Mire.
I misread that as two big keys. But yeah, so definitely worth going over that side, and that pretty much tells us exactly where we need to go. We can get both the keys that we need if we're trying to go mode it. And of course, where not to go if we're, or where we do need to go if we want to find those items. There are only 2 items in Misery Mire in this configuration, so that's handy information.
Yeah, and the other thing, of course, to remember about Mire in this situation is because they don't have Cane yet, one of those 2 items could be on Vitreous that they can't access.
Fylion makes his way up the tower. Dracarys going deeper into Swamp Palace with a booming rupee count of 1,700 to work with. So if these runners decide they want to buy potions at any point, they're certainly not in a bind for the funds to do so. Well, Dracarys coming up on yet another item location here in Swamp Palace. We don't have that big key yet to check the big chest. However, now we do.
Yep, we're going to be able to check that big chest, and we'll see if Dracarys goes to the back first or to the left. And he's going left. Which I think is actually probably a good move. The way I usually at least like to play Swamp Palace is, if I don't have the hint, then I'll wait to see if I get a map or a compass from one of the first few chests. And if I do, I'll go ahead and do the left side first. The only exception being if I'm 1 item from go mode, then I'll always go to the back first.
Now, the overall difference in time isn't, crazy between going there first or going there after. I believe it's about half a minute or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, to retrace your steps. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you decide to go back first, and you may end up saving time in the long run.
Yeah, like I said, it really just depends on what I still need to find in the seed. So Fylion's got his second dungeon down. We'll see where he goes after this.
Now, as a reminder to those of you at home, this is an all dungeons race, so not only do we have to kill Aghanim 1, which we already have. Ooh, getting dead rock Fylion. Yikes. But we will actually have to defeat all the pendant and crystal dungeons as well. So while it may look like Dracarys has a pretty heavy-handed lead, being up 5 dungeons to 2, we do have to complete everything, and that does give Fylion some opportunity to kind of make up some ground.
But not much time left as Dracarys finds the book. So he is now just a Cane of Samaria away from go mode. Now, of course, one thing to clarify too is he will need silver arrows, but actually, no, I don't think he knows where the silvers are just yet. Only Fylion knows where those are.
Now, this is a point I've always got confused, and I wanted to see if maybe you knew better, because you probably played a fair amount of swordless. Is it possible, because you know how you can do sword slashes instead of sword spins in silverless? Is it possible to do that with a hammer with a good hit?
So are you talking about for the final phase Ganon?
Yeah, you know how you can get like a really small frame window when you're slashing?
Yes, you can. It is possible to do Ganon silverless in swordless mode. It's just a very, very small window. I think it's a 2-frame window that you have.
That's what I thought. Yeah, functionally speaking, it's completely worthless to attempt, but, maybe there's some nut job out there who's willing to go for it.
I think I wouldn't call him a nut job, but his name's Andy, and I know he's done it.
I mean, okay, maybe that's a strong word to use, and I apologize, Andy, but, I mean, you gotta be crazy to pull that off.
Nah, I knew you weren't calling Andy a nut job, but I just wanted to point out I have seen somebody do it. So.
That guy blows my mind. I don't know how anybody does something. I mean, because you think about like how much dedication and practice it takes to do something like hovering, for example, or the kind of knowledge base it takes to do like the overworld glitches tournament. One thing I've really loved about Link to the Past is just how much people are committed to learning as much as possible about this game. So, I mean, let's extend that challenge. Anybody out there thinks they can pull off a silverless Ganon and swordless, you stand to go pretty far selecting swordless in this tournament.
I think for the people who I've seen try swordless Ganon, or silverless Ganon and swordless, they basically menu buffer it to try to get the exact frame right.
That's absolutely wild. I will never not be impressed by that. Well, speaking of menu buffering, or at least using the menu to switch between items, Dracarys is showing us the menu version of Argus, which, with the hammer, is really the only good way to fight him.
Yeah, this is pretty much unavoidable in swordless mode.
I was gonna say, I don't think there's really any other weapon you can damage the puffs with here. Would Burna work?
I don't think so, because you need at least essentially Master Sword damage to damage the puffs. Because if you think about it, Fighter Sword slashes don't work on the puffs, but spins do.
That makes enough sense. And of course, we're expected to have Hammer to get here in the first place, so I mean, it's not like you wouldn't use that weapon anyway.
So Dracarys finishes Swamp. That is his 6th dungeon done, and he's got the book. I gotta imagine he might go straight for Desert. And he might even check Mire while he's there. Oh, maybe not quite yet. He does have Mini Moldorm Cave with those 5 items.
Yeah, you did mention it before that he was going to tie it in with the south side checks, and overall, pretty fantastic routing today out of Dracarys. It also helps that Dracarys did find a little bit of extra health earlier on as well. While he did have a advantage with the Fairy and Blind fight, did manage to get to some healthier sections quicker.
Alright. Well, he's going to do some flipper checks. I think fylion... Has fylion done these already? No, he has.
I do not believe so.
No, he has, because he doesn't have the flippers. Which... Oh, he didn't find the flippers in Turtle Rock.
Yeah, he is not... Wait, I thought fylion went to Turtle Rock.
He did, but he didn't check everything. Because I think of the way he routed it. So... Yeah, that's right, because he got the big key kind of late. So he ignored the chest in the roller room, which means he didn't get the flippers.
I'll tell you, though, he got very close on that Armos fight to running out of ammo before getting that last arrow in. Had he been just a couple of frames later, would have had to have done a very slow finish to that fight.
Now, fylion does finish Armos. That is all 3 pendants for fylion. He's going to go finish off Pod, though, since he's here.
I would be so blown away if he found a Cane of Samari on the pedestal long before Dracarys.
That could be enough to get him back into this race, though. I don't know how... I don't think it would take Dracarys too long to find it himself. But we'd have to see.
Yeah, I mean, definitely would go to Desert Palace before doing that. I have to think, I don't know, I mean, maybe you would check Misery Mire first.
Well, considering he's already cleared Skull Woods, I don't think he'd go back to that area anytime soon.
I mean, you might even finish off Trinex before you do that. That hint! Seeing a little bit of Christos in this in text, aren't we?
Yeah.
Of course, I say that with love and affection. He'd probably be the first one to call himself a numpty.
Yeah.
But the boots today in your house, fylion, probably gonna laugh when he sees that.
Now, one interesting thing to remember about Ice Palace is this. If Cold Stare has a key, this is logically Samaria blocked.
Absolutely true. So we'll find that out probably pretty quickly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we may end up exploring most of the dungeon first. There's a lot of different ways to route this dungeon, and everybody kind of handles it differently. And there are a number of bomb jumps available to us that can help us with that. Dracarys only slightly off on that one, but we'll still be able to get around.
And he'll just check this chest now instead.
In the meantime, fylion has his Helmasaur King fight, another situation where we have quite a lot of health to work with, which is fortunate for this boss. You know, in the vanilla game, you would be fighting with Green Mail. Not exactly cozy with the health you'd have then. He's going to opt to use his bow and arrow, which is really nice. Gets most of the hits off with him. Should be one more hammer hit. Well, you can consider the Helmasaur King dispatched, fylion wrapping up yet another dungeon. Starting to get a little bit more completion under his belt, which is definitely helping the case against Dracarys here.
That was an unfortunate bonk for Dracarys there. Tried to dash through the door and bonked into the wall into the pit.
Yeah, ice physics in Ice Palace, probably the least nostalgically favored thing in all of A Link to the Past for people who played it when they were younger. Well, fylion now has the ability to check the back of Sahazrula's HUD, and will pretty much expound upon the entire area, making sure we don't leave any stones unturned. Probably trying to exhaust as many things as possible before making a commitment to another dungeon. After all, he's still looking for those flippers.
Yeah, on Fylion's side, he still needs the flippers, cane, and book. He's going to 3. This might be a Skullwoods play.
Certainly doable, and with all 3 pendants, that would give him an easy opportunity to check the pedestal immediately after.
Well, because I think he'll do it before, just for it'll be a little more of a time saving. If he's gonna pull it, it'd be better to do it before going into Skullwoods.
You know, the runners make it look so easy to invert, but I'll be honest with you, I'm really struggling to invert my common catchphrases. Because, I mean, you're absolutely right. I had the right idea, just completely inside out.
And no, Fylion's gonna do the dungeon first.
Did we both get jebaited? We both got jebaited. Again? fylion, why you do this?
I think he got mirror bounced the first time there, so...
Playing with our hearts.
Now Fylin's doing a heads-up play. He needs to grab the key back here because he doesn't have any keys. He does know he got both items in here, so he doesn't have to do anything else beyond kill Mothula. If he is going to check the pedestal, it would have been a little bit faster to check it before going to Mothula, because right after he's done with Mothula, he could have fluted away.
I find it kind of interesting that he was using a fire rod so much in that hallway. I mean, he does have half magic to work with, but there's only so much that you can get out of these shots when, you know, Gibdos tend to absorb them pretty well. Still, half a magic meter, which is functionally a full original meter, plenty to work with for Mothula.
Well, over on Dracarys' side, he's taking out Cold Stare. Now with his key count, I think it's not a key on Cold Stare. It'll be something else.
That sounds about right to me. burned down with a lot of gusto. 20 rupees, definitely not the key that would make this Mario locked, so good news for Dracarys, can finish checking everything if he so desires. Will not have to worry about logic impeding him.
At this point, I have to think that Dracarys is going to go for deserts. He's going to check some flipper locations first. But with the book, desert's fully clearable for him.
Perhaps Dracarys didn't check Ice Rod Cave yet?
I'm pretty sure he hasn't, since he didn't check Mini Moldorm either.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, this might be the pedestal coming up here for fylion.
Alrighty, chat, you've been waiting an hour and a half for this moment. We have collected 3 pendants all across Hyrule. We represent courage, wisdom, and power. And today it's going to yield... Ugh.
And a quick hammer bash to the pedestal in anger.
You know, I mean, fylion being a bit of a judge-like guy, you know, in that scenario, kind of just pounding the gavel, you know, just to get an order in the court, making sure that, you know, Hyruleans aren't getting any rowdier than they already are. I mean, after all, they make you go through all that trouble just to get a heart container. It's not even Sanctuary Heart, necessarily.
Yeah. So, at this point, we're still on the hunt for that cane, and Dracarys is going to check something we haven't seen yet. And that's King's Tomb. And fylion might be heading straight there, too.
Well, they seem to have caught a waft of something going on in this grave. We'll see if that's going to be anything. It's red, but not the red we're looking for.
So we've seen pretty much everything there is out there that we can access, except for the whatever's in deserts and in Mire.
And I guess Trinex? Oh, no, we need the cane still.
We still need the cane for Trinex.
Oh boy, that's a doozy. It kind of seems like desert's it. I mean, we see Dracarys activating Flute. That's not going to be helpful unless we want to mirror back towards desert, but... Or, no, we can... I get this so mixed up. Yeah, it would still be annoying to go there, but Dracarys is the only one who has that book and the only one who can find what is likely the cane location in there. It seems pretty much like the writings on the wall.
Oh, he's gonna go pull the pedestal now.
You know, he does have the luxury of actually checking it first, but I mean, personally, even though it's not good for a race, I think it's more stylish to actually just pull it.
Unfortunately, if I'm a runner in this situation, I think I need to save the time. I gotta check. I'd check it with the book first. I know chat would hate me for it, but
I fully agree.
Yeah.
Although I do admire the folks who do blind pull, and today Dracarys is one of them. Going to take the gamble on the heart container he probably does not wish for. Oh, that was Sync Heart!
Oh, you're right. That was the Sync Heart.
Oh, well, that makes things a lot better. I mean, in reality, I don't feel bad about it. Normally, I spend 6 minutes, well, personally 6 minutes and 30 seconds in NMG to try and get that heart. This seems like a pretty good value. Unfortunately, not going to put us anywhere closer to go mode. More for Pyrrhic value, if anything. But Dracarys now has an opportunity to pick up those silvers as well.
So we've got 2 items in deserts, and then most likely after that we're going to have 2 items in Mire. Up to 2 items in Mire. We may not be able to get both. But that's really the only places we've got left at this point. We find out at least so far this isn't bow locked, or not bow locked, boots locked. Even though we had those boots at 8 seconds.
Yeah, that was probably the fastest to the start time that I've ever seen a run actually start.
That does confirm this was not a boots locked dungeon. Oh, powder. Another fetch quest that could just lead him off here.
Yeah, sadly, probably not as important as a safety at this point, being that both of our runners have 15 and well, they have 15 and 16 hearts respectively. I imagine next time fylion gets a full heal, probably not going to run low on health for a while. Well, the hint is also of low value.
Yeah, we got that. Well, there was 2 unique items in Thieves' Time. I think we got the Cane of Burna and the Power Gloves there.
Yes, that should be correct. Or did we get the Power Glove in Death Mountain? No, you're right. We got that beforehand. No, you're totally right.
Fylion's going to check the hammer pegs. I think we saw this on Dracarys' side. I don't know if we saw purple... No, we didn't see purple chest, but we got a hint that it's nothing.
Alright, well, a couple more locations for Dracarys before taking the plunge into Misery Mire. Not a lot of other options. Certainly not appealing to head back to Death Mountain.
Well, I think there's still an item on Landmola's. He was just checking that first.
And here's Agina for fylion. Yet another location that's pretty easily orphaned. And for good reason today, 3 bombs, not that important.
Yeah, unfortunately for fylion at this point, his best hope to get back on track is that those flippers are go mode for him. Meaning that the cane is available in Desert or Mire without... Actually, no, they'd have to be in Mire at this point, because he can't get to Desert without the flippers. So no, the flippers... Yeah, the flippers can't be go mode. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and on top of that, unless Kane's here, there's nowhere in Desert that could even carry it. Dracarys is about to find out for us, though, and does have Silvers and Fire Rod both at his disposal. Well, not the nicest flight path angle for the first jump or for the second mole jumping, but a 2 cycle, certainly a fast fight either way.
I guess I did get both items, but that's 8th dungeon done for Dracarys. And yeah, I gotta imagine the next move at this point is to dip into Mire. Unless he wants to turn in that powder first.
As out of the way as that is, it's not that hard to get back here. I would definitely do it myself. Of course, you don't want to leave behind Agina if you're missing just 1 item, though. fylin's diving deeper into Misery Mire, having cleared Mire 2. We'll be heading to check the first item on this lengthy bridge, with the hookshot getting there a little quicker, and it's just a small key, so that's limiting the number of item locations that can potentially have, freestanding items out of the pool. There's only 2 such item locations in this dungeon, so knowing that the left will not have either of them, we're kind of narrowing down here.
Oh, but this is another new chest. Check. This is Bombo's tablet.
Oh! fylion finds the Cane of Samaria in the spike room of Misery Mire.
Oh, that is big for him. So that'll likely lead him back towards Turtle Rock. Hopefully he finds his flippers. And then he can go get the book in Swamp. But it looks like... Never mind. Dracarys is flitting away.
Oh, no! And that would have been the one thing that would have sealed this if Dracarys had just jumped right into Misery Mire, but instead is heading to Ice Palace.
Wait. Oh, he's heading the portal here. Where's... Yeah, I'm not sure where he's going. Is maybe Hobo? I don't know if he... Or he hasn't checked Zora yet. I think he's going to exhaust the overworld before dipping Mire.
And I agree with that. It does make sense. Of course, you know, we have the luxury of knowing whether or not that was the right call or not. fylion does get a little bit of time back to catch up, unless Dracarys has more overworld than I can think of, times 2 or 3, I think. It's probably not going to be enough, but this is something to keep fylion in the race.
Yeah, this will keep fylion alive for now. It depends... Yeah, like you said, I can't imagine it would take... It would basically take Dracarys so long to get here that fylion would be able to make up all that time.
I think kind of the double whammy here is the flippers. I mean, as you mentioned, going up to Turtle Rock is kind of an inevitability for fylion pretty quick here. Well, that would have been a sword on Zora. That would have actually been worth the money.
Yep.
Well, it is swordless, unfortunately, so no value there. But at least Dracarys gets peace of mind. But yeah, I mean, I think fylin's going to be forced into Turtle Rock pretty soon, and, you know, it leads him a pretty linear chain from there. I think everything else is go mode. Ice Palace and Swamp Palace. I mean, that's not that slow.
Well,
together.
No, it won't be a go mode Swamp for sure. The book was on the left side of Swamp.
Oh. Yeah, that's a good point. That's unavoidable.
Unfortunately, just a joke hint there. Dracarys, once he finds that cane, he'll be in go mode, and he knows where the big key is in here, so he won't lose too much time looking for that.
Well, Dracarys getting a pretty good Mire too, despite taking a healthy amount of damage, ironically. We'll be able to find that Cane of Samaria in just a couple of rooms here, so we're rapidly approaching go mode for Dracarys.
Yeah, once he gets the cane, he can just go mode the rest of this, finish off Vitreous. Which, Vitreous will be an incredibly easy fight for Dracarys since he has silver arrows. fylion will likely try to finish this on this pass-through. Unfortunately, it does not have silvers, so it's going to have a much tougher fight.
It wouldn't be as bad if he had, you know, more arrows to work with, but with only 13, that's a pretty, you know, steep climb.
Yeah, with picking up that Cane of Samaria, it was 1 hour, 43 minutes, 45 seconds. Dracarys is in go mode. And he knows it. He's rushing straight to the left side. I mean, just to kind of recap where we are in this race, basically, all this has really come down to is Dracarys having a little bit of an easier time on some of the Dark World fights they had to do to start Inverted. And then also Dracarys found the Moon Pearl on the Lumberjack relatively quickly, while fylion took a little longer to find it.
Yeah, it's kind of that commonly known early inverted seed syndrome. Even the best runners in this tournament are falling prey to it, because inverted just throws at you some challenges that, even if you're doing well on a good day, can still go sideways. Blind, for example, being one of them today. That under different circumstances, different settings, pretty breezy fight. But here's another one, fylion having to use bomb strats against Vitreous. Doing so to great effect, actually. This is pretty much exactly how you want this to go. But less common strat overall. I'm pretty impressed with these placements. Unfortunately, running pretty low on bombs, but with these arrows, should be able to pull this off. I'm a little more concerned about the hammer attacks on the main eyeball.
And Fyon's got to be a little careful with his health too, but I think he does have a blue potion. If no, maybe he does not. Never mind. He's got to be very careful. And unfortunately, since this is swordless, he can't even use his Cane of Burna for some safety. Though, does Cane of Burna damage those eyeballs?
Yeah, I think it still does damage. I just don't think you get the, Or wait, why would you bring that up? I don't think that has any difference in swordless, does it?
Well, I was just thinking he could use Cane of Burna to do some damage to those eyeballs and stay invulnerable while he's doing that.
Oh, you meant kind of like how you normally like dash or do swipes. Oh, yeah, I mean, the Cane of Burna itself should still damage them. I could be wrong about that. Maybe chat will correct us if I am.
Fylion, oh, he's got to be really careful. That got a little too close there at the end.
Part of me wonders if he's good against those enemies in Super Mario 64 as well.
Yeah, I remember
running circles around the competition.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dracarys, with the crazy advantage in damage that the silver arrows are, doesn't actually get a 0 cycle, but not a problem. Gonna wrap this up in 2 more arrows.
And so as Dracarys also picks up his crystal here, he's likely headed for Turtle Rock as well. The big difference is this will be Dracarys' last dungeon, while fylion still needs to basically dive into Turtle Rock and find the flippers.
Now, we did see fylion spending some time in this dungeon earlier, so the actual likelihood of this taking a lot of time is somewhat low, as long as he doesn't take the actual normal entrance. Should be able to get that pair of flippers relatively quickly.
Yeah, but we're going to watch Dracarys basically do what is the inverted Go Mode Mire, or Go Mode Turtle Rock.
Which is saying something. This dungeon is a lot different in this mode.
Yeah. In inverted, a Go Mode Turtle Rock is incredibly fast.
For those of you who missed it, though, the Cane of Samaria, which was our Go Mode for Dracarys today, was located in the Spike Room of Misery Mire. This is also another one of those differences with inverted mode. The placement of the tail there makes sure that you can still access the entrance, but you still have the same item requirements due to those pegs outside in the light world.
Alright. So time to watch a very quick... Well, actually, I mean, it's be a little slower than usual because we're going to have to hammer strats on Trinex, but beyond that, this is going to be quick.
Seeing a question if this is a neck-and-neck race. I think in a moment it's about to be a neck-and-neck-and-neck race.
Yeah, 3 necks. Yep, we're about to fight the 3 neck.
And we'll definitely try at that. Dracarys in a more comfortable position overall, equipment all race. We'll also have the comfort of knowing that he's not missing any items, so we'll not have to worry too much in that regard. But Phylion's pretty good at this game. I have a good feeling about this fight. And Dracarys so far doing pretty well. Only a couple of misses and plenty of magic to spare so far. And finally, doing a pretty heads-up play here, making sure to just burn down most of the health for this second head. Dracarys finishing up the fight pretty effectively. Looks like both of these two have it pretty well under control.
Yep, both are through Trinex. But I think with that we should start our game pretty quick because this is going to be quick before they're in GT. So do you want to give it a quick?
Yeah, go ahead and throw that command in chat. Folks, there are 22 item locations in Ganon's Tower that can potentially have the big key. We like to play a game where we like to guess which one of those 22 locations it will be. Throw your guesses into chat. If you are a subscriber or supporter of 250 bits or more across any of the Speed Gaming channels, you're also eligible to enter into a leaderboard. Either way, though, we encourage you to join in. It's a lot of fun. JP, what do you think it's going to be today?
I usually guess chest 15.
I'm a fan of Bob myself normally, but I kind of want to see this extended as much as possible. I'm going to call it a 22 myself today.
Yeah, sorry we had to end that game about as quick as we started it because, unfortunately, that's how fast it takes to get into GT in inverted mode, especially when you've already killed Aga.
Hey, our viewers are very fast, and despite the fact that a couple of them didn't quite make it in there, I mean, we got a good collection of guesses in, so you know how it is with Twitch chat. You guys are just waiting for it. And it didn't take long.
That was chest 3.
Well, unfortunately for fylion, not a lot of opportunities going to be made from that. However, Dracarys will be ascending up the tower immediately with a lot of keys in stow.
Well, as much as we got those guesses in, nobody guessed 3. Our closest was 2 from Super Momo World.
Yes, you did win, actually. You didn't win much, but the leaderboard position itself is very fun for bragging. Some people like to joke that you win all expenses paid tour to the top of the tower, as every race has one of those. Nice little tongue-in-cheek thing, but all in all, we're just glad you're here with us. Thank you. Oh, that feel when you're not on the leaderboard. Someday, JP, someday I'll have good guessing.
Yeah.
Either way, though, Dracarys is heading up to the top of the tower, has to deal with the Gauntlet up next, and I think a lot of people in Swordless mode are pretty likely to go get that restock room. Dracarys, with this equipment load, not stopping for anything.
Yeah, he doesn't need to stop for anything. He's got blue mail, he's got silver arrows. That's about as good as you're going to get in Swordless mode. He could look for red mail if he really wanted it, but you don't need it. He also has half magic. And fylion just picked up his flippers. He is heading straight for Swamp Palace, which is good for him because he'll get his book. Assuming he checks the left side.
Yeah, this puts him on all of the right paths that we need to head towards. Now, fylion probably feels pretty behind at this point. I mean, we're getting close to 2 hours, and, you know, at this point in the race, fylion hasn't seen a dot done yet, but, I mean, finding flippers at Turtle Rock wasn't that out there. It was just the one thing they happened to skip, which is unfortunate. Maybe fylion probably feeling the pressure at this point. I'm wondering if he's going to skip the left side.
He might, but I believe there was 2 items over there, and with as few places he has left to check, I don't think he's going to skip it. Because after this, it's basically you have to go to Ice Palace and full clear that anyway, so I think he's going to go in with the intention of, well, he might hope he can go mode it, but I think he's going to go in with the intention of full clearing it, and just go into go mode as soon as he finds the book.
Sounds like you're updating your challenge projections there.
Yeah, I put my phone right next to my microphone. I need to
I know the feeling. Hey, I'm following all of these races as well, just as closely as you are. I'm not telling you who's on my fantasy team for Rando League, though. Alrighty, so Dracarys, certainly a contender in that regard, putting up points on the board in this tournament with a commanding presence in this match. Really, nothing's gone wrong. While Phylion's been doing certainly some very difficult scenarios, Dracarys just seems to have been walking into these fights with more health, and has had less kind of hurdles to deal with in that regard. I would say both of these runners have been putting on a pretty good show either way.
Yeah, Dracarys is making really good progress through GT. He's almost at Moldorm 2. I mean, this has been pretty clinical with how he's been taking this on.
And that is Moldorm 2, the last of the regular bosses before Aghanim, and then, of course, Ganon. In All Dungeon Seed, we may have to go back to Aghanim in some settings, but we've already taken care of that today. So Dracarys going to finish this up quite similarly, except for the worlds we're in, to how you'd normally finish up Rando.
Fortunately, those little mini Helmasaurs are in the way. If you don't get through that room with a nice dash, that can be a really painful room to finish. And with the bug net, we're going to see bug net strats on Aga 2.
I do admire the use of the bug net. It is somewhat imprecise as it has a very slow animation, but it looks awesome. We like to call it swag net for that reason. Yeah, if you thought playing Ocarina of Time that the bottle was the first instance of using a strange, unconventional item to play Zelda volleyball with, you're wrong. That was not the first iteration. The bug net was.
Alright, Aga 2's down and time for Ganon. So looking at Dracarys' tracker, though, we found every item in this game except for the magic cape.
Yeah, and I guess maybe like red mail, but I mean, I don't think our runners really cared about red mail, but I mean, you're absolutely right. This is an exhaustive search of Hyrule. Well, here comes the big pig himself. This is a very challenging fight to do with Hammer, because Ganon has a very large hurt box just from his actual, body. So getting in close with the Hammer, exceptionally difficult from lower angles. From the side, as you see Dracarys doing now, really not that awful, but we're definitely going to spend extra cycles in this fight.
Now, he's actually got a good setup here. He's got to be careful still, but he's got a blue potion. And he might use that right now. He's got a fairy too.
Yeah, that's definitely fantastic news to have, because, if you don't have at least some kind of backup, you're kind of in a rough spot.
Oh, and that's perfect.
It's so polite again, just stand there taking hammer hits right to the head.
At this point, you're through the worst of Swordless Ganon. Just gotta get through each of these phases and then unload some silvers into them.
Now, if you remember the original game, this is not normal that you can, do damage to Ganon with this hammer. This is specific to Swordless mode. And in fact, this is one of the reasons the hammer is required no matter what. Dracarys using some really good game mechanic knowledge to not touch the D-pad at all once you got hit by those fire bats. They will send you in the opposite direction that you're holding.
Ooh, a little close to the edge there.
And that'll do it. Dracarys manages to get through this race just barely over 2 hours in, without a sword whatsoever. Very impressive race to be able to do in that amount of time.
And we can say that Dracarys has officially finished in first place at the time of 2 hours and 14 seconds. And immediately after that, fylion forfeit.
Yeah, and of course we can see that he is in Swamp and stop for a moment there, probably to see the IRC. An incredible race from both of these runners. I got to admire the perseverance of fylion to, take a couple of trips to the shoulder early in the race and to keep tumbling through it, because those are the hardest situations to be in. Blind, easily one of the most punishing bosses in the entire game to not get first try, and under such difficult conditions. So that's a lot of mental fortitude from fylion. I'm very impressed by that. Get your GGs in chat, folks. Congratulate these runners on an excellent race today.
And we'll see if either of them chooses to join us here in chat. Oh, okay. So fylion is not going to interview. He's unfortunately having some issues with his mic, so he's not going to be able to do that. We'll see if Dracarys will join us, though.
Yeah, we'll definitely have lots of opportunities for everybody who's in this group stage to give some thoughts on the races as well, because as a reminder for the format, for those of you who are tuning in late and maybe perhaps have not seen much of the rest of this tournament, each of these runners in the group stage will face their opponents a total of 3 times, so there's actually one more match between these two. And as I speak, we are actually joined by the victor of the race today, Dracarys. How are you feeling after that just barely over 2-hour inverted?
Not feeling too well about my performance. I mean, it was enough for the win, but that seed was rough. The early game, at least, was pretty bad.
Well, it was certainly a universal thing, between the two of you having, very strange logical chains. You actually did find that Moon Pearl quite a bit sooner than fylion. I presume because you had a much easier time with Blind. You may not have known it, until you watch it back later, but that fairy that you saved was pretty clutch.
Yeah, that fairy saved me the Blind kill.
And of course, it also saved you from having to deal with the reset fight, so that was actually a pretty hefty time sink for fylion today.
Oh yeah, I can see that. The scripted hammer blind fight is hard enough already, and if you don't even have a script and have to just rely on your precision, it's so hard with the hammer.
Yeah, it is a brutal brutal rule set to be working with. I'm impressed that both of you guys got as much done as you did today, because honestly, I would have thrown in the hat a lot sooner. But so, with inverted swordless out of the way in this matchup between you and fylion, obviously we have game 3, which is randomized settings. Do you have any thoughts as to whether or not inverted's a veto in your mind?
I really like inverted. It's just a combination with swordless that's a bit painful, but inverted by itself is a really fun mode that I will never veto. I'll just veto retro every single time just because I don't enjoy that mode.
Ruby management not as fun, I imagine. We're definitely excited to see the next opportunity between you and fylion. Obviously, this was a high-charged race with some crazy stuff going on. Do you guys have another match scheduled yet?
No, I have no matches scheduled yet, and I need to wait until I get a new controller because my controller is just acting up weird lately, and I need a new one before I schedule some new matches.
So you're at 9-1 in your group. I gotta imagine you're in pretty good shape to be making the bracket at this point. How are you feeling going into these last 5 games?
I'm feeling pretty good, actually, because I'm in such a good spot already. But yeah, I don't mind if I lose all 5 of the remaining games, to be honest. It's just for fun anyway, and even with 9-6, I'm in a pretty good spot to still make the bracket, so let's just have some fun.
I certainly admire that philosophy. So you're pretty much most of the way through these group matches. One thing I wanted to ask is there anything that you're planning on doing to prepare for the, I'm sure, eventuality of expert mode in the bracket stage?
I haven't thought about that so far, but I probably have to practice it at some point, because expert is just... It's just way harder than hard, and hard is... Well, it's not too hard, but it is hard for a reason. So I guess I have to practice some expert seeds to get into that. Otherwise I will just get crushed in the brackets.
Well, you certainly stepped up to the plate today, given a very challenging situation. I think pretty much anybody out there watching that would have been impressed. I hope so. Except for maybe perhaps some of your competitors who think they can step up to the plate. Dracarys, do you have any words for your competitors out there who may be watching this and maybe looking to try and get an edge on you?
Not really. Just don't pick retro, please.
You heard it here, folks. Retro every time.
Oh, I know what you're going to be vetoing then, I guess, in the veto stage.
Right. I mean, I love retro personally, but I think I like it more as a caster than as a player. I don't think I'd like enjoying the rupee management, so I can definitely see where you're coming from there. And there's some pretty strange mechanics involved with that bow. Alright, so we obviously haven't seen your item count yet here, but I'm imagining it's going to be pretty through the roof. Dracarys, do you feel like you've been everywhere in Hyrule and back and inside and out?
Well, almost. I left a few blank spots. I think there was Ether Tablet, Magic Bat, and Hobo. But that's about it. I've been everywhere. Except for the GT basement, because the big key was early.
Yeah, talk about it early. Fourth total chest. We were all thinking, maybe there's a little bit of time to kind of even this out a little bit. I'm guessing 22 in chat with the game, and no, there's none of that today.
Yeah, by the way, you gotta enjoy that Pegasus boost time, 4 seconds.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about my boots early on, so many times just walked and then realized after walking for a minute, oh my god, I have boots, why am I not dashing? What am I doing?
Sometimes you just gotta remember to get the run started.
But yeah, unfortunately, early boots are not that good in Swordless, just because you can't dash through enemies and you'll just hurt yourself if you try it.
Yeah, that is very true.
Well, I'd like to extend a congratulations to you, of course, for winning the race today and inching closer and closer to the eventual brackets. And of course, congratulations to fylion for putting on a fantastic show. Folks, if you've enjoyed the race, and I sure hope you have, it was definitely fun for me to watch. Best way to support these runners, give them a follow here on Twitch. Keep an eye out for other content that they make as well. All of these people are very generous with their time to put on a show for us, and they make pretty good content too. So I think that's pretty much everything I had to ask. JP, is there anything that you'd like to, ask Dracarys regarding this race today?
I think you got most of it there. It was a good race to watch. Good luck to you going forward, and yeah, just good. Just to have some fun with these last few weeks, and then kind of going into the bracket.
Thanks.
Well, folks, if you were looking to watch as much Randomizer as possible on a Sunday evening, and great decision, I'm of course biased towards Eastern time when I say that, there is plenty of Randomizer left for you. Starting just about 10 minutes ago at 4:30, we have one starting with Machinex and Sea Falcon on Speed Gaming 5. We also have fylion again versus Cadenza on Speed Gaming 3 at 8:30, and ALTTP Randomizer will have Eralis versus Asmati Games, and that'll be it for the restreams for tonight. There are lots of matches going on anyway. Of course, if you want to catch all of the matches, your best bet is to follow Speed Gaming 2 through 6, as well as ALTTP Randomizer and ALTTP Randomizer 2 through 4. We'll close this out. I have been Eudaimonistic, joined today by Brewers fan JP. Folks, thank you for tuning in, and Brewers fan JP, thank you for joining me. And also, we had a tracker today. We should probably thank them.
Yeah, thanks to R Sigma, who is our tracker for today. Yeah, also good to work with you again, Uday. Hopefully we'll work again sometime this tournament. And yeah, I think we can close off there. So have a good day, everybody.
See you later.